smile that moody intro. Hi and welcome back to my channel and to this new episode, which is sponsored by Wondershare DemoCreator, but more on that in a few moments. What you just saw in the beginning of this video is what I'll try to teach you, but this time using an add-on named Animation Nodes. So if you like it and want to create this or something similar, buckle up for the ride. And as always, the project file and textures are in the description down below, but I have to mention that the textures that I use are from ambientcg.com and the HDRI is from polyhaven.com. So make sure that you show them some love, for they create everything that you can see on their website for free. But I say enough talking and let's jump into Blender. We start by selecting the cube and in edit mode delete everything, and with Shift A add a torus, and in its properties make sure to add 96 at major segments and 24 on minor segments. Then exit edit mode and change the name of the torus to base displacement. Now press Shift A to add a plane axis empty and rename it proximity rotation. Now again, add another empty, but this time choose a sphere and rename it proximity sphere. Set its position on y-axis to 1 and the scale to 0.7 on x, y and z axis. Then by selecting the sphere first, then the proximity rotation, press Ctrl P and select object to parent the sphere to the rotation empty. Now with the proximity rotation selected, insert a rotation keyframe to start of the timeline on z-axis, and at the end of the timeline insert another keyframe with 360 degrees value. In the timeline, select both keyframes by pressing A, then press T and choose linear interpolation. Now check if it has a seamless transition from end to start. For the base displacement torus that we just created, in the object data properties, we're gonna create a vertex group and in edit mode, select all vertices, then assign them to the vertex group. Now in the modifier panel, we will add a vertex weight proximity modifier, and for the vertex group options we will choose the one that we just created. As for the target object, we will select the proximity sphere empty. We will change the proximity mode from object to geometry, then increase the highest values to 1.2. In the fallout settings, we will choose smooth and click the arrows next to the name that will invert the fallout effect. Now we're gonna add a displacement modifier, create a new texture, and select the type of the texture as clouds, and in the noise basis as Voronoi crackle. Back at the displacement options, we will set the strength to -0.5. In order to animate the displacement noise, we're going to create another empty sphere named texture parent. And in the base displacement torus, in the displacement modifier, we're going to change the coordinates from local to object and select the new texture parent sphere. And in the vertex group, select the one that we created earlier and you should see the displacement being affected only where is the proximity sphere empty. Now select the texture parent empty and create at the start of the timeline a keyframe for y-axis rotation. Then right in the middle of the timeline, a higher value keyframe, and for the end create or duplicate the same value that's at the start of the timeline. Select all three keyframes and duplicate them and drag them on the right by pressing G until the first keyframe will overlay the last keyframe on the timeline. Now selecting all of the keyframes, drag them until the one that's now at frame 150 will be at frame 75. Going back to the rotation properties, we will add another single keyframe, but this time on the axis. Now at frame 150, we will change the value to a higher number or 2 like I did for mine. And again, at the end of the timeline, make sure that you have the same keyframe as the one from the start. All of this effort should create a seamless noise displacement animation. Now we're going to create another torus. For this one we will change the minor radius to 0.5, major segments to 30, and minor segments to 15, then change the name to wireframe 1. After this, we're going to create another torus with minor radius to 0.4, major segments to 40, and minor segments to 250. Then rename it to wireframe 2. Now, for the first wireframe, torus, in the modifiers panel, we will add a shrink wrap modifier and set the base displacement as the target. Here we're gonna add another modifier, and that's the wireframe one. For this one, we will check the boundary box and uncheck the even box. We can see how it breaks the order in the mesh after we add those two modifiers. And in the end, just change the thickness to 0.03. For the second wireframe torus, we will add the same. A shrink wrap modifier with a base displacement as the target, and a wireframe modifier with the even box unchecked, the boundary box checked, and the thickness to 0.01. For both of them, I also checked the auto smooth in the normals properties. Now we're going to create a new collection for the last torus that we're going to make. Name the collection to abstract torus, then Shift+A to add another one, with a major segment set to 60, minor segment set to 30, and minor radius set to 0.3. In the modifiers panel, we will add a decimate modifier set to unsubdivide. An iteration set to 1. Then apply it and rename the object to particle torus. In edit mode, we see that we have exactly 900 vertices, and we want to emit from each individual vertex another object. For this, we will use a particle system, set to hair, check advanced box, then in source settings, set emit from vertices. Uncheck random order, and set the number of particles exactly to the number of vertices of the torus, in our case 900, then set the hair length to 0.15. Now we're gonna close the first collection and the particle torus, and with Shift+A we're gonna add a circle and change the vertex count to 6, and in edit mode fill the space by pressing F and move it to the side for a moment. Unhide the particle torus and in the particle settings in the render tab, change the render as path to object, and for instance object, select the circle that we just created. You can also change the name of the circle to Hugz torus. Then, in the rotation panel of the particle settings, change the orientation axis to normal and increase the scale of the particles from render then scale. Now, selecting the Hugz torus, move it closer to the center so both objects will stay in view during the edit. And now in edit mode of the Hugz torus, rotate it on x-axis 90 degrees, scale it a bit, then on the y-axis rotate it 30 degrees. And now rescale it until they barely touch. Here we're gonna hide the particle torus for a moment by unchecking the show emitter box from viewport display. We can see that those hexes closer to the center are clipping into each other, and for this we have a solution by creating a vertex group named size, then going to the particle settings at viewport display settings and check again the show emitter box. Now press Ctrl+Tab in the viewport and select Weight Paint. Check the Paint Mask box, then double press A to select all, and press Shift+K to set a uniform weight of strength 1. In order to see the changes made to the size of the hexagonal shapes near the center, we must go to Vertex Group in the Particle Settings, and for the length box, set the vertex group that we just created. Now, change the weight value to 0.5, select the Gradient tool, change it to Radial, then go to Top View or press numpad 7, and from the center of the viewport, with click and drag, play around until the hexagons from the center won't clip into each other again. Exit Weight Paint mode, and in the particle settings in the viewport display uncheck the show emitter box in order to hide the torus. Now select the particle torus, then go to Modifier menu and click Convert button on the particle system. This will create a separate object for each individual particle and make sure that you leave all of them highlighted, because now by pressing M we will create a new collection named Hex Collection. Make sure that you move as well the Hex Torus object into the new collection. Then hide the Abstract Torus collection and leave active only the recently created one. Now if we select one object and go to Edit mode, we will see that all of the objects share the same data, and though it looks awesome when animated, we really need them to be separated, and for that, select all by pressing A out of Edit mode, then go to Object, Relations, make single user and click on Object and Data. And we see that now if we go in Edit mode on each of these objects, the rest remain static because now they don't share the same info. Here we're gonna select them all with A, tab for Edit mode, and we go to UV Edit panel and press U, then click on Wrap, because later we want to add some texture to the hexagonal tiles and have different parts of the texture shown on each face. Before we continue, I will also share with you a few words about today's sponsor, which is Wondershare DemoCreator. As you already know, I make tutorials, and that's a lot of recording and editing involved, and for me, a helping hand in this is the Wondershare DemoCreator tool that not only records, but lets me edit my recordings and export them at a high FPS rate and up to 4K resolution, and that's all done inside one tool. Wondershare DemoCreator is the right place where you can find a helping hand, or I shall say software that will bring your creativity and productivity to the next level. For Wondershare team created the DemoCreator software that can handle both of these problems, and you can get a free license of DemoCreator if you click the link in the description down below. And you can also expand the license up to 21 days if in your turn will invite more friends to join. And while we're at it, I might as well get you to the process that's behind editing these tutorials. And of course, everything starts with opening the software, and immediately we can see 4 options from where we can choose: New Recording, Record Screen, Record Game, and Video Editor. For start, we will stick with the New Recording option. We see that the interface changed, and from here we can go to Advanced Settings, then Shortcuts, to change the keys in order to better remember them. Then choose the FPS rate that you want and hit Record button. After the countdown that's present every time you start or resume the recording, you can continue with whatever you're trying to record, either a game, a tutorial, or something else. But you can also enable the drawing method to have the audience better understand some steps that you're trying to explain. You already know my recordings, but the amazing part with DemoCreator software is that after you stop the recording, it will take you right to the video editor. And here I spend most of my time of each episode. Like you see here, I do a lot of splitting/cutting on my footage by choosing the time, then right-click, then split, to either speed up parts that are not worth explaining or to delete repetitive steps. You can also import other footage, but the strength of the video editor is in the editing options available. You have dozens of libraries ranging from animated text templates and transitions to emoticons and video effects ready to be used with a simple drag and drop into your project. Yes, it's that simple, and everything that you find inside the libraries is high quality and can fit any type of editing style. Just find the right transition or effect, and with a simple drag and drop on the footage segments, you can immediately see the change. Also, for the text animation, just drag it on the timeline and click the text, then change it as you please. After you finished editing your video, go to Export and click Create Video, and we see here that we can choose more options about the quality of the video in order to avoid compression or artifacts. Also choose the Save Directory, and after that just click Export and that's it. And DemoCreator software recently just got the 5.0 update released, and trust me, there's so much added to the tool that I experiment with it and still haven't reached the end of it. If you want to create quality videos and tutorials, click the link in the description down below, or go to dc.wondershare.com or simply wondershare.com, where you can find a wide range of optimized softwares that will increase your creativity, productivity, and utility. So make sure that you click the link in the description down below and start creating high-end quality videos. In order to continue the tutorial from here, you need to install the Animation Nodes add-on, so make sure that you go in the description down below and click the download link for the Blender version you're using, whether it's 2.92 or 2.93. Download the zip file, and after that, go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, then click Install, and search for the folder where you download the zip file of the add-on. Then search the name in Add-ons and check the box so it will be active inside Blender. From here, a huge thanks will go to Medquake Creative, for I search a lot trying to learn how to scale objects depending on the proximity of another object. And he taught me how to, and I will also link his YouTube channel in the description down below, and make sure that you also check his channel. Before making any changes with the proximity scale, select all the hexagonal objects from the hex collection, press Ctrl A, then choose Scale. Now, if you properly install the Animation Nodes add-on, you should see it in this list, and click it. Click New, and with Shift+A, search for the following nodes: Collection Info, Object Transforms Input, Object Controller Falloff, Evaluate Falloff. And before adding more nodes, connect the collection info to Object Transform Input and click the list that's after the None box. Then change the None to Location and link Object Transform Input location to the location of the Evaluate Falloff. Then Object Controller Falloff again to the Evaluate Falloff node. Now search again for the next nodes, Map Range, and connect the Evaluate Falloff node to Values. Search for Object Transforms Output and connect the collection info objects to the output. Here check X, Y, and Z for scale properties, and add one more node named Vector from Value and put it between Map Range and Object Transforms Output, and make sure to link it all the way. Now unhide the totals collection that we made in the beginning, and for the Object Controller Falloff we will choose the Proximity Sphere objects to drive the scale. And in the collection info, choose the hex collection to be affected by the proximity sphere through the animation nodes, and we already see that changes are being made to the viewport. Now, in order to invert the effect, check the invert box from the Object Controller Falloff node and play around with the settings until the hexagonal objects will fade as you please. In order for the effect to be active and not glitch out or stop, The proximity scale must always be visible in the viewport, otherwise you will get some errors on the animation nodes and have to start the process again. I left the shading part to the end because maybe some of you want to give it another feeling through light and shaders, but if you like the mood that I went to, keep watching. Here we go into shader editor, and in the first collection we will add a simple sphere that will stay in center to fill the scene a bit more. Increase the segments to 64 and the rings to 32, then scale it 0.5 on all axes and apply the scale with Ctrl A, then scale. Add a plane and rename it floor. Then move it on Z-axis under all that we created by now, and in edit mode, scale it to 5 on all axes. Add a point light if you want more shadows, and move it around until you like it. But make sure to go to World Settings and connect the HDRI provided in the project files, or choose one of your own. And also change the strength to 0.1. We continue with the floor material and we create a new shader named Concrete. And add a color image and link it to the principal BSDF. And if you want clear black and white, you can also add a color ramp between the nodes. Next, we will add the roughness image set on color, and in the end we will add both displacement and normal images set on color, and here I went with an unorthodox method by mixing both displacement images because I tried to experiment with different settings, and though many will criticize what I did, I don't care, for I went for the looks of it, not for the correct way of using the nodes. In the end, by selecting the roughness image and pressing Ctrl T, we will add the mapping nodes and link that to all the images and change the scale values of X and Y to 2. I also added a camera but left the default settings on it. We will move on with the sphere shader, which is simple. Just a metallic BSDF with a surface imperfection texture added to the roughness. Then I rotate it to 90 degrees on X-axis, so the texture won't be visible stretch on the poles. And played around with the color ramp node to make the roughness less visible. Here we're gonna select the wireframe 1 torus and create a gold shader, so set the metallic value to 1, the roughness to 0.2 and the color to light orange. For the wireframe 2 torus, I created a silver shader, again with metallic to 1, roughness to 0.35 and color to white. Now for the hexagonal objects, we will disable the selection for other collections, and make sure to unhide the hex torus that drive all the particles made earlier. Selecting it, we will create a new material named gray and change the metallic to 1. And for the roughness, I link the concrete roughness texture with a color ramp node for more control. but in order for us to see the change, we must go into edit mode and unwrap the hexagonal shape. We're gonna add the silver and gold shader to the object, and after we take it out from the collection, we will scale it to 0.67 on all axes, then apply the scale and move it closer to the torus. Now in the modifier panel, we're gonna add a solidifier modifier and change the thickness to 0.023. And in the materials for the offset and rim options, we will choose one. Then add a bevel modifier and decrease the amount to 0.005. Then in the shading options, we will set the material index to 2. Here, checking if the other collections are disabled from selection, then by pressing A to select only the hexagonal objects, and having highlighted only the one with the modifiers, we're gonna press Ctrl L. We will select Link Materials, then again, selecting Copy Modifiers, and we see that all the visual changes made to the hex torus are now visible on the rest of the objects. And if the facing is inverted and you don't see the grunge texture facing you, select them all again by pressing A, then tab for Edit Mode, and press Alt plus N and select Flip to have the effects shown as they should. Now, if you don't want to add more effects to the objects, then hide forever the hex torus object and go back to the shader and play around with the values until you like it. For me, I added a mapping node to the gray shader and increased the values from X and Y axis to 5. For the final render, I changed the strength of the HDRI to 0.05 and also added a mapping node and changed the value of Z rotation to 37. As for the compositor nodes, I will not explain what I did, for it's simple, so I will leave this screenshot if you're interested in it. Also, if you're interested in the recording software that I use, check the first link in the description down below. With these last words, we came again to an end. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay awesome. See ya!